surviving and thriving in the prehistoric times. Like, that's not something you're going to overwrite in 3 sessions because you feel good and because you've got motivation. That motivation will dissipate when the next downswing comes along, and you're going to have to, like, it's like training in any discipline. You have to burn things deep into the subconscious to...
So now I'm more educated about the mental game, but I'm not necessarily anywhere near fixed. I maybe had like a 5 or 10% improvement. So what would you suggest to people to go away after they read your book? Because what's going to happen is a lot of people will read the book, they'll feel great, they'll know what the problem is, and they'll stop it for a couple of days. And then they'll be right back where they were and be discouraged. What do you recommend to people to continue the rewiring process, I guess I should call it?
Yeah, probably just buy the sequel when that comes out, really. Just kidding. I think, like, what you're saying is true. Like, people will fall off of the wagon, so to speak, and this happens in every respect. So even if you've got a really clear roadmap as to how to fix something, it doesn't mean that you have the willpower, discipline, or, like, practical application to fix it. So one thing I would definitely say to people is that if you can draw up a pre-session routine that happens at a certain point, because you're always going to play poker, right? If you're a poker player, you're not going to stop playing poker. So if you can attach your preparation, mental game prep, and all of your visualizations and all of your planning to the start of your session, and you can make a rule where you do that, maybe even get a spreadsheet where you give yourself like a green box every time you do it properly and a red box when you don't. It's just a way of, like, again, getting that reward and making yourself accountable, really. So all the things that you need to change the mental game are in poker therapy, but you have to do the work off the table. That's the diagnosis. That's like understanding the roadmap to your misfire. If you read the book, you'll probably know that every misfire has a roadmap. We start with the trigger, familiarizing ourselves with that. We move on to the interpretation that's being run in the subconscious. Then we talk about the response program, the effect of using that interpretation. So in the example of the infantile misfire, the trigger is, I'm not getting what I want, this bad thing has happened. The interpretation is, I'm not getting my way, this is untenable, I need to do something about this. And the response is, punch the table, and I'm the biggest tantruming brat you'll ever see, which might sound weird to people who know I've read this book. But, like, I worked through all of these things as well, and I wasn't getting anywhere, and that's partially why I wrote this book. And to answer your question fully, I think you have to do it for a very long time, because you're burning a whole new set of rules into your brain, and you're trying to eradicate rules that have been not even set by you, they've been set by generations of your ancestors surviving and thriving in the prehistoric times. Like, that's not something you're going to overwrite in 3 sessions because you feel good and because you've got motivation. That motivation will dissipate when the next downswing comes along, and you're going to have to, like, it's like training in any discipline. You have to burn things deep into the subconscious to survive and to make that change. And I think following the roadmap in poker therapy of the 4-step rewire process that you'll find in that book is something you have to do regularly and often, like little and often, as if you're learning a language or learning a new skill. You want to do little, routine, reliable bursts of it until you've overwritten it, and you want to do it in-game. It's not enough just to think about it out of game. You have to do it in-game, because like the dog, you have an animal brain, and it can't be coached when you're not in the situation where the trigger is present. I can't stress that enough. The trigger has to be present while you're working on the problem, and repeatedly.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we do have a really good example of someone who rewired themselves into something of a mental game god, and unfortunately it's not me, but Jack. I was just going to ask you, could you explain what your pre-grind warm-up looks like and how you deal with adversity during the grind? Because obviously you are someone we do put on a pedestal for this kind of stuff.
I mean, like, I don't think you guys should put me on a pedestal. Like I always tell you, like I told just like the rest of them, but like pre-grind, I always have like, I'll do like a 10-minute meditation, then I have like 10 things that I'll repeat to myself, like short sentences that I'll repeat to myself to kind of keep my mind zoned in for the grind. But what he's saying is actually very different than what I do personally. But I do have a question for Pete. Like, how much change do you think is possible for people that just simply read your book, let's say, for example, because from what it sounds like, it's like you have to read the book, but then you have to kind of be your own mentor and coach and have like a certain degree of awareness to really just be pushing forward with these things. Like, how effective do you think just the book is as compared to the book plus receiving some one-on-one attention or people actually guiding you and holding your hand throughout this process? Like, I guess my main question with all that said is, like, what percentage of humans do you think are capable of actually being self-reliant and doing it that way?
I think the problem with that question is that that's a really gradable thing. Like, some people are capable of doing it not at all. Others are capable of doing it a tiny bit. Some are capable of doing it a bit that they see some benefit, but not enough to really like give them success. And then others are capable of sort of half doing it and getting some benefit. Then there's people that will smash it. So the answer is, with the most commonly, the amount you'll get by just reading this book cover to cover and putting it down again is what Scott described in his initial reaction, that the first few sessions will go a bit better. Some of the ideas will be a bit more illuminated, and you'll be more self-aware for a while. And then like the things will creep back because they're age-old ingrained mental processes. So I think the answer to your question is that not much change is possible at all unless you use the book like a mentor. I think you have to keep referring back to the problems that you have, to the flowcharts. I think you have to use your own initiative. You have to make your own flowchart for it in the same paradigm, like, because I teach the reader a process for framing their misfire. And if you can take a type of tilt, even if it's not in that book, and make the same chart for it, that's initiative. So the answer is, if you have no initiative, no self-awareness, and no willpower, and you just read the book, you will get almost nothing out of it. But I think that goes for any form of learning whatsoever. Obviously, one-to-one tuition would be great. It's going to be way more effective. But the problem is that one-to-one mental game coaching comes at a very expensive price compared to picking up a book for £30 and reading it. So the scope is huge. The potential is huge, what you can get out of poker therapy. Because I've used all these techniques with people, I know they work. It's you get out what you put in, I think, is the thing with all books, especially this one.
Repetition is key, isn't it?
It is, because you're literally training like an animal part of your mind. You're training a subconscious part, and it doesn't happen cognitively. Mm-hmm. That's what Jack was explaining there with the meditation, with the sort of mantra meditation, right? That's all about getting through to a part of your mind that wouldn't listen to intricate logic. Like, I'm ranting right now and I'm using all these words I use in the book. That's not what changes you. It's not the fancy words or the intellect of the situation that changes you. It's the brute force repetition of a process that penetrates through to your subconscious and makes changes there. That's what makes a difference, and only you can do that. The book is your roadmap.
Yeah. So it's about habit creation, yeah.
Yeah.
So for those people watching, I guess, like, let's say we have, 60 people watching. Some of those, everyone's going to be different. Mm-hmm. So you're saying for those viewers who are able to be self-aware enough and, like, I guess, coach themselves and hold themselves accountable, those people can do it on their own. And some of the people that kind of know they're going to read it and then they're kind of not going to put in the work. Maybe they have a history of, like, not implementing things or not following through on things. For those people, you're saying it's probably better for them to get a one-on-one coach to kind of coach for them. Like, the coach has to coach them, and then for other people, they're going to coach themselves.